It's just absurd. Yes.
What about the moderates in our own backyard?
What about the moderates in our own backyard? What about them? You know, there were a lot of good Germans who didn't like the Nazis at all. And they stopped them, didn't they? They stopped them dead in their tracks. You know the Bolsheviks? Do you know what the word Bolshevik means? The majority. Yeah. Were they ever actually a majority? No, that was just another lie. The Bolsheviks were never a majority in the Soviet or the Russian parliament, and certainly never had the support of a majority of the Russian people. They were an organized, energized vanguard that was ruthless and violent and able to control the majority. It's the same thing here. Are there Muslims who just want to go about their lives and have a job and take care of their family and their wife and their wife and their wife and their wife? Yes. And seriously, of course, there are Muslims who just have one wife and, you know, perfectly ordinary folks. Are they doing anything to stop the jihadis? Absolutely not. We hear many times that the Council on American Islamic Relations, this UAE designated terrorist organization, I love that, and these other groups in the United States condemn the Islamic State, condemn the beheadings, condemn all this. Okay, go to any mosque or Islamic school in the United States. Ask any Muslim organization in the United States, ask them this: what kind of program do you have to teach young Muslims that the understanding of Islam represented by the Islamic State, which you condemn, is wrong? There is no such program anywhere. Anywhere. So yeah, there are a lot of Muslims who are just really nice people who are not doing anything to further the jihad, but they're not doing anything to impede it. The major Muslim organizations in the United States are all Muslim Brotherhood. In the United States, the Obama Justice Department is collaborating with these organizations to win special accommodation for Muslims in schools and workplaces. For example, Disney, you know. Disney, I've never been to Disneyland or those places, but there are a lot of people in costumes, right? Mickey Mouse and all that, and they're around. And this woman, a Muslim woman, got a job there, and they said, here, you have to wear this uniform. And she said, I'm not wearing that uniform. I'm wearing the hijab and the headscarf. And they said, you can't wear the hijab. We have this dress code. All of our customer service people wear this uniform. This is our dress code since 1957. And you see, in other words, they didn't just make it up to harass Muslims. And she said, I will not wear that. I'm going to wear the hijab. And they said, okay, let's transfer you to a job in the back where you won't be interacting with customers because all our customer service people wear this. And she said, nope, I got to be in customer service. And they said, goodbye, you're fired. And she sued. And the Obama Justice Department joined the suit and got Disney to change its dress code. Of course. Now see, that is purely Islamic supremacism. And the idea of impressing upon Americans that wherever Islamic law and American law conflict, it's American law that has to give way. There are so many stories like this. I don't know if there are any, but my book Stealth Jihad is about this. That might still be over there. There was a school district outside Chicago. First year student. You ever teach school? You ever teach high school? Nobody? Well, I can tell you, I taught high school way back in the 80s. And when you're a first-year teacher, first-year teachers have no rights anyone is bound to respect. Okay? And I think the Supreme Court said that. And this first-year teacher demanded that she get 3 weeks off in the middle of the school year so she could go to Mecca for the Hajj, the pilgrimage. Yeah. And they said, you're a first-year teacher. You got summertime. And she said, well, no, the Hajj is during the school year. You know that Muslims have to go, are obligated to go on the Hajj, the pilgrimage, once in their lifetime. She was 29. Do you think she might have that chance? 9 years. If she waited 9 years, she would be 38 when the Hajj fell during the summer. And she wouldn't have to take any time off at all. Because these Muslim feasts, they move through the year. Nope. She wouldn't wait. She had to do it during her first year. She demanded 3 weeks off. She was the only teacher. They have a math lab. They didn't have math lab when I was a kid, but they have math lab now. I guess you do math experiments and have math test tubes, Anyway, dissect math frogs. And math lab, she was the only one. And she was going to be gone for 3 weeks. She sued. Obama Justice Department joined in. She won 75 grand, and she can go on the Hajj. This is what I call the stealth jihad. The idea that, see, in Islamic law, the non-Muslims have a second-class status. They're denied basic rights. Remember, I quoted you the passage. They pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. You don't have equal rights with Muslims in an Islamic state. Even in every last Muslim country in the world today, most of which do not implement Islamic law in its fullness. There is no Muslim country in the world today where non-Muslims have absolutely equal rights with Muslims. There is always something that they do not have. So when they try to do this in the United States, and there are plenty other examples I can give you, they are establishing the same thing. The Muslims have rights that the non-Muslims don't have. J.B. Swift meatpacking plants in Colorado and Nebraska. The Muslims sued. Obama Justice Department joined the suit. They won. So they have break times for prayers during the day. I didn't know this, but meatpacking, it's an assembly line. Like Ford cars, And I attach the chicken leg, and I guess you detach it. But anyway, it's a disassembly line. And the Muslims are walking off the assembly line, and the whole thing's getting gummed up. And so now the non-Muslims complained and said, you are discriminating against us. We have to work extra hours so these guys can have their special breaks. They lost. The Muslims have the special breaks. That's it. This is the threat inside the United States. It's not so much blowing things up yet, although now we have axe attacks in New York, and there's going to be more of that. But it's this subversion and eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within by our hands and the hands of the believers. It's happening.
I think very interesting. What identity is Europe willing to bestow on Muslims? And is goodwill becoming smaller and smaller? So I think those are the questions I'd ask Douglas.
The options we have in Europe seem to me to be twofold to deal with this issue. One is to do the following, which is broadly speaking what we are doing across the continent at the moment. It is to decide that there is a serious problem with Islamic fundamentalism which we have noticed, and as a result, for the rest of time, we will be discussing Islam. Muslims, Muslim communities. We will be having many, many seminars like this one. There will be a dialogue that goes on endlessly, and we will additionally be paying huge amounts of money to self-appointed Muslim representatives, usually the big mouths from their communities, who decide that they speak for Islam. They will, by and large, also be more radical than the people they claim to speak for. And as a result, the whole dialogue will be skewed. That's one possibility. That's what we're doing at the moment. And we've seen the problem from that again and again. We keep on making the same mistake over and over again. The second option is that Europe itself, Europeans, are better at saying what it is we believe in, what it is we are, that is, people of all faiths and none, and say where we draw the line. It's noticeable to my mind that that isn't happening at the moment. Islam is, I'm the first to concede, exceedingly complex, is not homogeneous, has very many confused ideas within it, as indeed does Europe. But there's no point in solely beating up on Europe in such a debate and solely praising Islam, because praise and indeed blame have to be shared around at least equally. But addressing Islam and saying that racism and Islamophobia can be brought together in the way they have been in recent years is, to my mind, very troubling for the following reason. I'm an atheist. I have no dog in the religious fight, as it were. But it is Islamophobic if I state the fact that I think that Muhammad very evidently made up the Quran. I also believe, by the way, that Moses didn't come down from the mountain with any engraved stones, and I think it less likely that Mary, the mother of Jesus, had a child for the first time without any interjection of the male, and more likely that a young Jewish girl told a fib. But of these three things, which to my mind are perfectly obvious, I believe that Christians and Jews put up with hearing that most of the time, and I don't get called a Christophobe or a Judeophobe for saying so, but an Islamophobe straight off, absolutely. As I say, racism does exist, and we should be addressing that in our societies, but Islamophobia, as such, is a crock term. It is not to have any special seminar, any special hearing, any special vocal representatives. As an immigrant friend of mine always puts it, the moment when you know you're really integrated is when you realize that being a citizen consists of simply putting up with the same old crap the rest of us have to put up with. And that's it.
Let's move on. Daniel, would you like to come in on some of the issues that our questioners have asked?
I have never heard Douglas speak before. I have not even read anything what he have written. So it's the first time, well, I have read worse people than him, you know. So I would like to correct him factually two things, because when I hear him, I'm really amazed that he's so ignorant of what is happening among Muslim communities and even what is happening in Britain. Let me give an example. He says, Islam has many confused ideas, as has Europe. Now, a man of his stature is comparing a religion with a continent. You can't do that. Let me finish. If you want to compare, let's compare Islam with Christianity, what Christianity has done in history and what Islam has done. Then I would like to have a comparison. Then you said that Islamophobia is a bogus term. I agree with you, because it's not Islamophobia, it is hatred against Islam. Douglas, you should know that Islamophobia is our hatred against Islam is not a new phenomenon. It started right after the inception of Islam, where the popes and the clergy and the whole historical narrative, if you see, it is anti-Islamic. And it has nothing to do with homosexuality. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism.
So, Douglas, you've heard a number of comments here for the last 2 hours or so. Have you mellowed a bit? Has it changed any of your ideas?
I don't quite know why it's me that has to mellow. I mean that perfectly frankly. I don't see why I should drop my hatred of and disdain for bigoted and racist viewpoints that come from Islam. And nothing that's happened today will change that contempt or that hatred for that kind of bigotry. Bashi said that he didn't know of my work, and I can certainly return the compliment. But he did say that he was not sure why I wasn't talking about Christianity and Islam, and it is, I can simply say, because it's not the title of what we're meant to be discussing today. The title was Europe and Islam, and that's what I've tried to approach. I do think there's one thing that you said, Bashi, which is important to take up on, which I thought was deeply disingenuous. Your quoting of the Quran, the Quranic verse about there being no compulsion in religion. You do know how that verse goes on. Yes. Would you like to quote it to the people present?
First of all, in all religious scriptures...
Let
me finish. I'm just saying to you, because I'm answering to you, because you're taking just one surah out of context.
Well, you quoted it.
No.
Okay, let's move on, please. Come on.
One of the things I think we have learned from today, and some of us have agreed on, is that the approach of many of our governments at the moment is wrong. Our governments in Europe still too much think, in the same way as Kissinger said about Europe, which number do I dial to get Europe? And our leaders still continue to think, which number do I dial to get the Muslims? This is the wrong way to think about it. You don't dial numbers to get communities. They are just simply part of Britain or Europe, as Daniel said at the outset. We should be faith-blind as we are colour-blind. But the problem is that when you have the most reactionary, the most bigoted people, the most loudmouth people stepping forward, this is a